Hello everybody, and welcome to YouTube's Scale Modeling channel. Today we're going to do part 9 of our multi-part series on building and detailing the Revell-Monogram 148 scale B-29. And in the first part, I'm going to show you how I glued the canopy on so that utilizing the flexibility of the canopy, especially at the front end, and using tiny drops of super glue in combination with the techniques that I'm going to present to you, you'll achieve the same result. And it looks really, really good. And in the second part, we're going to do all of the masking to prepare for airbrushing. So with that said, let's get started with part 9. When I test fitted the canopy, I discovered several things. One, the canopy is very flexible, especially towards the front. Two, if you push the canopy back, you get a really tight fit on the upper part of the fuselage. And third, because of the flexibility of the canopy, you can push in at the very forward end so that the canopy doesn't protrude out on the left and right side. I've got the canopy glued on, and came out pretty good. It's not perfect, but it looks pretty good. The canopy itself, this plastic, is somewhat flexible. And so what I did was I started by positioning it, getting it as tight as I could, butted up against here, and then tiny drops of super glue, just a tiny drop at a time. And I let each drop dry, and then I continued. And I made sure that the surface of the canopy was flat with this top as much as possible. And then I worked my way around. You can see the numbers. This is how I glued it based on these numbers. So I did here, then I did here, then I did here, then here, then here. Once I got that done, then what I did was I used the flexibility of the canopy and worked down this side and got the edge of the canopy butted up against the side of the fuselage here, and then the edge of the canopy butted up against the side of the fuselage on this side. This side has got a little, it's like maybe a 64th of an inch off right about here. So what I'm going to do is I'll run some masking tape along this edge here. And then with a very fine sanding stick, just go ahead and sand this down a little bit here, do the same here, and then little by little, I'll work these too. I'll put masking tape here, and work on this, then work on this, and then kind of work my way around. Now, there's a little bit of a gap here. I didn't want to fill it with super glue. What I'll do is I'll fill that with some white glue. So let me pick this up and give you a close-up here of this. You see that gap there? I can fill that. This is level with the surface of the fuselage. So what I can do is fill that gap with some white glue. And there's a slight gap here. I'll fill that with white glue. And there's some gapping over here and here, white glue again. And here is this side. So once I get it sanded down, I'll show you what that looks like. But it came out much better than I thought it would. But using the flexibility of the canopy in order to do this really made a big difference. And I've got a little bit of gapping here. There's super glue in here, but there's a little bit of a gap. I can fill that with white glue. And again, it's flat. Everything is trued up against the side of the fuselage. So it came out better than I thought it would. And again, it's the flexibility of this canopy. If you start gluing here and use this process that I've just talked about, and then as you work your way forward, you can use the flexibility of the canopy to get it set correctly. So yeah, it came out pretty good. So I still got a lot of work to do on it, but it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and move the camera down so you can get a better view here. There we go. You can see those voids. Once I get it sanded down and filled, we'll take a look at it again. But so far so good. And I had 2 scratches on here, and I just used a little pledge here and a little pledge here, and it got rid of those scratches. So yeah, we're moving along. And once I get all this sanding done, and it's going to have to be done very, very carefully. So once I get all that sanding done, I'll clean it all up, and then we'll go ahead and take another look at it. But so far so good. And I test fit the forward piece here, and it fit fairly well into place. There's a little bit of an overhang down here. I could either have it down here or up here, and I choose to have it down here. And I might be able to, if I'm very, very careful, close that overhang gap with some very, very mild sanding. So we'll see how it looks as I progress along. But so far so good. Once I get this and this done, I can go ahead and start masking and priming and painting this monster. This is going to be quite a challenge to paint, but we'll get it done little by little. It's coming along pretty good. Almost done sanding the fuselage and canopy connection points, and what I've been doing is slowly working my way around. I'll tape an area to preserve the clear parts on the glass, and then carefully with this very fine sanding stick sand an area. So this is done. This is now done. This area is done. I finished down here, and over here I took my time, and I've got a little bit of a void right back here that I need to work on. And what I'll do is I'll just fill that with some white glue. But when I'm done here, I gotta polish the plastic before I do anything else, and then I can begin the process of sanding it out, of polishing and then putting the white glue inside. And then once that's done, I'll put a vacuum on here, pull out all this dust, blow it out, and then I can put the front piece on here. So we're making good progress, and we are, I can go ahead and pull these off here. We are done. The only thing I have left is this side. So I think it's going to come out pretty good. Looks kind of rough right now, but that's okay. It'll come out and it'll look much better once I get it primed. And then once I get the white glue in here and I mask and prime it, I'll be able to fill in any spots that I may have missed. The white glue tends to sometimes, like in this area right here, it might get a little bit of concaving, and I'll just add more glue, and should work just right. So it's not going to be perfect, but it'll look pretty good. So we'll take a look at it again once I'm done with this side and I got all of the plastic polished, and I'll show you. So we're getting there. Here's the gluing sequence, but it's also important to push back on the canopy so that it butts up against the fuselage very tightly. And it's also important to make sure that those areas that touch the upper part of the fuselage are flush with the sides of the fuselage. Once the top area is glued in place, you can then use tape to help position the side of the canopy up against the side of the fuselage. The tape holds the canopy in position while you use your thumb to ensure that the side of the canopy is flush against the side of the fuselage, and use tiny drops of super glue and work your way from the back side of the canopy to the front of the canopy. I use the same gluing technique for the port side of the canopy, starting from the back and working my way to the front. The last 1/8 inch of the port side of the canopy is where you've got this area where it sticks out pretty prominently. And this is where adding that extra piece on the inside of the forward part of the fuselage comes in handy. It gives you a greater gluing surface and makes the bond area between the canopy and the fuselage stronger so it won't pop out. The gluing on the starboard side of the canopy is now complete, and this small void area can easily be filled with white glue. With the gluing complete on the port side, it's now time to tape areas and use a mild sanding stick in order to get the surfaces smooth. I use small strips of masking tape to protect the clear surfaces, but I butted the tape up against the side of the framing and then started sanding with a very fine sanding stick. It took 2 applications of tiny drops of super glue along the seam line between the canopy and the fuselage to fill the seam and sand it smooth. Unfortunately, this also left a little bit of a ridge, which I was able to sand down once I repositioned the masking tape. I've got all the masking done, and I'm now ready to clean the surface with alcohol and then start airbrushing. So on the large openings for the turrets, I made some 7/8 inch discs and closed them off with those. These 2 smaller ones, 15/32 disc and a 12/32 disc right back here. And then I used the Edward pre-cut masks for the canopy, these 2 windows, and the windows in the back for the aft gunner. I gotta be careful how I do this. There you go. And I didn't put the back glass in, I just stuffed it with tape and tissue paper for now. The bottom, let me turn this beast around. You can see how the bottom is, and I've got some still photography I'm going to switch to here in just a minute and explain how I did this, which I use the same technique for all my masking. I put tissue in the openings and then just cover it with small strips of masking tape. So this is how it looks. And the Edward pre-cut masks went on pretty good. In some areas I had to cut them to get them to fit correctly, and then I used small strips of tape to cover the cut areas. So it came out pretty good. So now, just like I said, I got to clean the surface with some alcohol, and then we are ready to get it on and start masking. There's the front. So hopefully once I get all this primed, it'll look pretty good. I may have to do a little bit more fill work with some Elmer's white glue, but I did seal all of the voids so that airbrush dust won't get inside the fuselage cockpit and around the nose. So we are ready. So let's go ahead and switch to some of the still photography, and then we'll get going on this beast. The first step in masking large openings is stuff the inside with soft tissue. You can then close up the opening with small strips of masking tape, and the tissue will act as a really good backing for the masking tape. This particular method for masking takes time, but it really gives you good results. The bomb bay areas on this model were pretty big, and I used a lot of masking tape to stuff in between the bombs and the center opening in order to get a really good backing for the masking tape. The 7/8 inch discs that I cut out for the turret openings worked really well. The lips of the tape attached themselves to the inside lip of the turret openings so that I wouldn't have to use any tissue paper. The Edward pre-cut masks provide a tiny strip that you wrap around the base of these clear parts, and then you fill the rest of it with strips of small masking tape.
Some of the Edward pre-cut masks are either too small or too large, and the way to deal with that is to just cut the mask into 4 sections and apply the masking to the corners of the clear parts and then fill in the rest with small strips of masking tape or have the masks overlap. Most of the Edward pre-cut masks fit really well onto the canopy. There were several that were too small or too large, and again I used that technique of cutting those masks into 4 sections and then filling in the areas with small strips of masking tape. This technique works really well.
Hello, scale modeling world. Thanks for watching part 9 of our multi-part series on building and detailing the Revell-Monogram 148 scale B-29. And if you follow the procedures that I laid out in the first part of part 9, your canopy is probably going to look better than mine came out. So with that said, have a great evening. Stay tuned for part 10 where we do all of the airbrushing, and most of all, happy scale modeling.